Hello. I've shared in previous videos how I met the Lord in 1997 in May as a vagrant. The second coming of the Son of Man as a vagrant. I want to share in this video just a bit about how it was to be, because I didn't know it. Even though I've been led to understand all about it, I didn't fully, totally comprehend to explain it at the time, but I knew it. First of all, I want to tell you about something which I noted in the prophecies in Luke, Matthew, Mark and Luke, when they asked Jesus they showed the disciples, they showed him of Herod's temple and the buildings that were completed and the glory, and Jesus said, see, when you behold the building, Herod's temple, he said that not one stone shall remain upon another that shall not be cast down. And then when they asked him, when will this be, and what will be the sign of your coming? And the two different Gospels have got slightly different variations of that, but generally the thing in common, Jesus went on to say about the time of the end. And he spoke in Luke 21 a long list of things that would happen, and he said, watch and pray always. And he said, not well, I'll just tell you, I'll tell everyone to watch and pray always, because no one will be able to tell you these things won't be on the news, these things will be done in a time unawares. It won't be the common spoken about subject. He said, see and know of your own selves when it's summer by the trees, when they go green, you know yourselves, of yourselves, that it will be summer soon. Well, that was his way of saying, look, you know of your own selves, you don't need men to teach you. These things you will see and you will know. And then he goes on to say, take heed to yourselves, in Luke 21:34, take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with satiety and drunkenness and the cares of this life, and that day come upon you unawares. Then he said in verse 35, for as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Well, that snare on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. You have to think about that. How can that be? What time and what day have you ever known for that to take place? No more so than our generation. As a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. And then he says, watch ye therefore and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. That verse there is not to be confused with the verse in 27 that says, then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with great power and great glory. It's to stand before the Son of Man before that day comes to pass. I'll explain. That temple, Herod's temple, was a temple that was made with hewn stones. Stones that have been worked on by men. Men have used tools on them to cut them, to prepare them. Not so with Solomon's house. Solomon's building that he did by the counsel of God to do it, he built it as according to God's requirements. He used chosen men, wise men, to cut the stones for the foundation. But all the other stones of that house were uncut, untouched by human tools, human hands. They were uncut stones, and that's what he used to build the rest of the house. So that was the first temple. That was Solomon's temple. Herod's temple did have men's hands up, that was cut by men. Okay, that's the difference here. Paul refers the house of God as, he acknowledges the foundations being laid, Christ being the chief cornerstone, but the building of living stones are people, of children of God. They're the stones that build the rest of the house, but the foundation has been laid by chosen men of God, chosen disciples and apostles, Christ being the chief cornerstone. Built on the law and the prophets. That's the foundation. Chosen men, chosen work. But the rest of the house is built by uncut stones. That's, if you like, children of God that haven't been taught by men. They've learned what they have, and they've received what they have by the teaching of God. They've been led by God, taught by God, not by men. They may have been evangelized by somebody, but their teaching and their strength and by revelation knowledge, it comes. All Zion's children are taught of the Lord. Jesus said, "No one comes to me except the Father bring them, or the Father teach them to recognize Him." Anyway, that's that. Now, going back to Herod's temple, not one stone being upon another. If Solomon's temple and the living temple that Paul talked about in Ephesians, that being God's house or God's church, Herod's temple represented something too. It represented a structure of men taught by men, hewn stones. Men have used man's tools on it to cut them. So we've got two houses: house of God, house of men. Herod's temple was a house built by men, even though it was used for a place where the Lord chose to put His name there. But nevertheless, it was destroyed. But it also symbolised something for the time we're in. Now, if you go to Luke 4, when Jesus was tempted, after He got baptised by John for righteousness' sake, He went into the wilderness and He fasted for 40 days. 40 days He fasted for praying. And then it says He was hungry. 40 days without food, and then He was hungry. Well, I can't go a few days sometimes these days, but a few hours even. So Jesus went into the wilderness 40 days, and then He was hungry, and then Satan comes to tempt Him. It's listed 3 temptations. If it wasn't important, it wouldn't be in all the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke. He was tempted 3 times. Satan said to him the first time, and he used hunger. He used that bit. He used, whatever He used, it was for a reason. I'll read on. He said, "If you be the Son of God, command this stone to be made bread." And then Jesus answered him and said, "It is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of God." Jesus quoted these things, what was written each time, and it's for us to learn that, because if something isn't written, there's not much influence behind it when you're talking to people that are tied up with religion. It's to know what's written so you can quote it. It's for the people that know partly what's written and they're tied up with it. They're religious people mainly. Because spirit is spirit, flesh is flesh. Another thing Jesus said, one thing He said, if you don't know Moses' writings, how will you know my words? Even the strange things He said and the parables He said it in accordance with what has already been written from Moses' time and Solomon's Proverbs and Psalms. He spoke in reference to that for the Jew. So we're in the Gentile world. We have a Bible at hand, a New Testament and Old Testament. Christians mainly centre on just the new. But the new's pointless without the old, and the old's sort of fruitless without the new. You need the both. You need the lot. Most of all, you need the Spirit of God to discern and learn. The 3 temptations. The first one, but by every word of God. And then the devil taking Him up. This is the important piece I want to refer to the temple. And the devil taking Him up to a high mountain, showed unto Him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. That bit there, in a moment of time, what a strange thing to say. Was it a moment of time? Like, why bother mentioning that unless it's for a particular moment in time to come? That time was, as far as I'm concerned, from 1986, when the Pope called spiritual leaders to one place at Assissi. That's the moment in time he was referring to, and from then until this day, it's been a moment of time. And then the devil said to him, all this power will I give you, and the glory of them, for that is delivered to me. See that? It's delivered to him. And to whomsoever I will, I give it. So if you therefore will worship me, all shall be yours. And then Jesus answered and said to him, get behind me, Satan, for it's written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. But he couldn't have quoted that, he couldn't have said that to Jesus if it wasn't given to him, delivered to him. He said, I'll read it again, verse 6, Luke 4, verse 6. And the devil said to him, all this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will, I give it. How can you gather all the nations of the world and the glory of them into one place? Like, it's not like the millions of people into one little place, like some would imagine, or the massive big crowds that Hitler used to have before him, or the thousands you get at a football game or something like that. No, this is the whole world. How do you do that? How do you gather all the nations in one place in a moment of time? You gather the spiritual leaders, because each leader is as many. Or, in other words, the demon that said, my name is Legion, I am many. There was probably 100 there, but one spoke for the lot. And John, when John in Revelation, he heard the voice of many waters, and seeing one Christ, one man, or as Abraham, father of many nations. If you're brought before many nations, you just have to come before one man that represents all those nations. Anyway, this signified a moment in time when all the nations will be delivered to Satan. And this is the time, what Jesus was referring to, of the snare that comes on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Back to Luke 35. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. So there's a standing before the Son of Man at the time of their structure, of their Herod's temple, of their spiritual Herod's temple, made of men and men's teachings and men's abominations and men's everything wrong. The Pope at that time, Pope John Paul, I don't want to major too much on the issue that he was Catholic. All are servants of God, right? Even the man that he chose to start that initiative, Pope John Paul called all the spiritual leaders of different cults and religions into one place. I've read the letters he sent out at the time, and if you're that keen to know this and to learn it, look up John Paul's letters that he wrote to all those spiritual leaders. Read the common language that he used. He used the human conscience, he used as the common denominator there, to call them all. Now, the fact that they all came, that there wasn't a full lot at that first Assissi gathering in October 86. There was many of them, but not all of them. But as the years have gone on, following that time, they held other meetings, and there was more increase of more and more organisations, Christian organisations, Buddhists, Hindus, Zoroastrians, Red Indians. Everyone was represented by the end, apart from a very small people that all scattered, and maybe a couple of tiny denominations unheard of, maybe in Russia somewhere else. But this is the way it was delivered to Satan. This is what he meant in a moment of time when he tempted Jesus. But Jesus whipped him then with what was written, and the next temptation that Satan used towards Jesus was, "If you be the Son of Man." He took him up to the highest pinnacle on the temple and said to him, "If you be the Son of God, cast yourself down from hence, for it's written, He shall give His angels charge over thee to keep thee, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest at any time you dash your foot against a stone." It's interesting how every temptation that Satan used, three of them, in it is a mystery back to of the plan of what's all to happen. Because at the time of that Assissi gathering, and that's also the time of his enemies, God's enemies, who made his footstool. God said, the Lord said to my Lord, "Sit in my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool." Because at that time, when I've made your enemies your footstool, you'll return. And you'll return almost as a great fall. Almost as the description of Lucifer in Isaiah. How art thou fallen? Not that he remains there, but no servant is greater than his master. And if you get the chief Pope calling all other spiritual leaders, then the fact that they obeyed, they consented, they came, they put themselves under the Pope's leadership, and the Pope also confesses that he is servant of Christ, then God's enemies have done his work for him. Well, they would. But his enemies have gathered through betrayal, through perdition, through abomination, whatever. But they've all gathered, and now they've done it under the name of Christ. It belongs to him. The heathen now belong to him. Pray now, ask now for the heathen, possession of the heathen. And I'll get it, he says in Isaiah somewhere. He owned everything from the beginning, yes, but the process of it, all the heathen now, those that didn't even know him, now shall serve him. All the ones of the strange cults and religions, they all come under that name, that one name, Jesus Christ. What the Pope took into that prayer, that communion, as an unholy thing, as if it was an unholy thing, as if it was no different from the others. But in that betrayal, that blindness, that evil, that iniquity, Christ rightfully owned everything. The fulfillment of the death on the cross, everything he owns. The heathen, those that don't even know anything about him, even. But the fact that we're all underneath those spiritual heads, those heads that are candid, that is how and why now, to understand how Christ has come as a vagrant, he has come as a servant yet again, even from great glory, from being seated at the right hand of the Father, from the presence, he's come as a refreshing, as a time of refreshing from the presence of the Lord. He was in the presence and he came down again, but not in the glory people have expected. Not the wicked didn't know this the way I didn't know it. I was walking at the time acceptable enough to see him, to meet him. He led me there at a time when I was very just by the skin of my teeth were able to receive him. I received him for 2 days. I was with him. I didn't know it was him until he revealed himself in my house, under my roof. He was under my roof for one night, tarried there for one night and then went on his way. And this is the way he showed me to understand these things more simply. So by his coming the way he has, as a vagrant, all his servants, i.e. everyone that came under the Pope that time, and the Pope, all of his servants shall be no greater than the master. And if his master comes as a vagrant, the heads are going to fall down. You see that? You see it now? That's the mystery. That is where it's going. And then, in Isaiah 33, verse 10, you'll be able to understand where he says, "Now will I arise, saith the Lord. Now will I be exalted. Now will I lift myself up." Even though he'd done it before on a small scale, he's now going to do it again, but this time he's going to draw all men unto him. That's the beauty. This is how you can understand the scriptures, by applying that. It has to be, it's like the missing mystery bit. You needed to know that the Son of Man was to come as a vagrant first, and then he lifted himself up again, and that lifting up will be the praise of the ones he's chosen everywhere. The sons of God being manifest, the children, the babes. No one's taught them. No one's taught them. Only the Father's taught them. And these are nobodies, plain people, despised, rejected. These are the ones that Paul says that God is now pleased to choose. They're wise and they're lofty and they're educated ones. Didn't know him. They in fact, even for generations, but mainly this generation, they have not known God, and therefore it pleased God to choose the things that could to condemn them and to frustrate them. I hope that's been more beneficial to understand the second coming. I don't know where else he's come to. I've told you how I met him on the first video. Even if you don't believe that I actually met him, then believe the actual doctrine, because this isn't of my own. All the things that Jesus said come into play, come into part. They come into like a big jigsaw puzzle, and this is how he's done it in our generation. And when he said watch him praise, because you won't hear about this in the world. In fact, at the time unawares this snare was to happen. 1986 came at a time unawares. Just now, all people are looking forward to something, Antichrist or whatever. This is what they've been taught by men. They're all looking for something that's already been. This is a great, marvelous wonder before our eyes now in our generation. This is really big, and it makes me rejoice every time I think about it. What an honour. Anyway, at the time of the thief, like a burglar, it's been stolen, it's gone, it's happened, the day is gone of that man's sin being revealed. Paul said that the day of God won't happen until that man's sin was revealed. The son of perdition, that was Pope John Paul. It fits all the bits. Everything that was worshipped, everything called God and worshipped, he gathered them. And because he called them, they became as his servants. He represented them all. He was the top boy. And it was delivered unto Satan at a moment in time, and that moment in time was from 86 on. Now we're going to see them fall, and then will be the lifting up of Christ. And that will be according to the praise of his children scattered, wherever we are, however strange or odd we seem. In fact, if we're not strange and peculiar, then question it. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.